You're welcome. It's God's Comic Bradstein on Bradstein Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. Tonight's guest, Nick Shakoour of The Chosen. He actually plays Zebedee. Wyatt, I almost named you Zebedee, but I chose not to because I was afraid you wouldn't be able to pronounce it properly.
You're not wrong. I have absolutely no idea how that's pronounced.
No, you can't, and I don't want you to. Zebedee is a biblical name. Have you ever noticed how many biblical names are not only unpronounceable, but it's almost like they wanted desperately for their child to be bullied and beaten up his entire life. For example, when you come to school and it's like, hey, John, Fred, Jim, and Zebedee.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, they wrote a song about him.
They did?
Zebedee Doodah,
Zebedee Doodah, Zebedee. You could be right. Disney jumped right on the Zebedee bandwagon and said, you know what? For some people, they would see this as a flaw, but not us. We've got an entire tune that we can put together using the Zebedee title. Son, I'm so grateful that we're back. I was on the road. I was in Pennsylvania, which, if you're not familiar, is where pencil vampires live. In Pennsylvania.
I see. Did you bring home a souvenir, like, I don't know, a writing utensil of some kind?
Yes! And it can stab you in the neck.
Oh, cool. So it's a pen?
Do you remember?
Or it's a pencil.
Do you remember? No, you didn't grow up like this. Hey, I just thought of this. I grew up, I'm older than you. I don't know if you're aware of that. But I grew up where we had to use pencils and paper in school.
I did too.
So you had pencils.
I know what a pencil is. I know what paper is. I know what it means to write with them. Yes.
And were they number 2 pencils?
Oh, of course.
See,
everybody knows that number 2 is number 1.
But Wyatt, what was it about the number 2 pencils? Because here's the thing. They used to give us, tests, and they would have you fill in these little, what is a flattened circle called? So it's like a pill?
An oval.
No, it's not an oval, though. It's almost like a pill. It's almost like this, like that, it's like not a jelly bean because it has a bit of a.
That's still an oval. An oval is literally anything circular shaped that's not a perfect circle.
It's kind of like a hot tamale candy. Remember the hot tamale?
Yeah, it's an oval. Much like a rectangle can be any square-like shape as long as it's not an actual square.
So you're saying that it's still an oval even though it's elongated?
Of course, yeah, because that again, an oval is just a circle, but not perfect.
I gotcha. So it has issues. It feels less than because it's constantly being told you're not perfect.
Pretty much, yeah.
Meanwhile, Circle over here has nailed it.
Circle over there has got like 5.0 GPA, already accepted into Harvard, you know, the works.
Dang nabbit. Well, anyways, we used to have to fill in it would be like multiple choice for the test. And when you had to do it at the end, it was on these special cards, and you had to fill it in with a pencil, because I guess they'd put it through a computer and it would tally everything up because, people didn't want to do it by hand. It was kind of the beginning of mail-in ballots where people were winging it, and they got the results they were looking for, if you know what I'm saying. But you had to use a number 2 pencil. So I don't know if it's because there's a magnetic pieces of particles.
Just because you know big words doesn't always mean you have to use them.
But graphite, because we used to get concerned. So here's where I was going. I know it sounds like it's a number 2 pencil soliloquy, but it's not. What I was getting at was we used to be concerned that if you ever got stabbed with a pencil by a classmate who had gone, rogue, and they do. You know how classmates can get when things get out of hand. They've had a rough day, and so the lone thing they can think of is to stab you with a pencil. That you would get poisoned,
Lead
lead poisoning, but somehow we miss the fact that it's not lead. It's
I mean, it's called pencil lead, so that's definitely not helpful.
but I thought it was graphite.
It is graphite, but it's called pencil lead.
Okay, but
because apparently the same people who named it are the same people who also, like you, know big words and decide that they have to use them all the time.
do you know if graphite a naturally occurring mineral in Earth,
yeah.
or is it a man-made sort of invented mineralish?
It's not man invented, but people. It is artificially created.
It is
nowadays, but it's a completely naturally occurring thing.
So graphite is a mineral.
Yeah, yeah.
So is it on the periodic table?
No, those were elements.
Elements. Okay. So what differentiates
I mean, I guess technically
an
it
element
is
from a mineral? Like gold is a mineral, but it's also an element.
So an element
Yeah.
is a pure, a pure thing, like a metal or a gas or anything that's just pure it and nothing else. A mineral is.
Did you know my first band was called Pure It?
Pure it? I thought it was called Pure it.
No, Pure It.
I thought it was some sort of weird Italian word or something.
No, it was Pure It. Anyways, go ahead. Go on with your insight into elements and
a mineral
minerals.
is a combination of multiple. It's a compound basically.
I see.
Yep, it's a bunch of them mixed together. You know, you stir them all together in the melting pot that is the Earth's core, and then a few billion years or whatever, and then volcano, and then graphite.
So thank God for volcanoes, or we wouldn't be able to have pencil lead.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
You know, a lot of people underestimate the beauty of volcanoes. They always see them as apocalyptic. There's some kind of terrible, sort of dystopian world where volcanoes destroy everything. And let's not forget to mention, if we're just going to start giving some accolades to volcanoes that have stood the test of time and are pretty famous, Pompeii, if I'm not mistaken, actually not only spewed ash throughout this entire Italian town, but these poor people were just engulfed in it, buried in it. And then they found these guys and they dug little holes in the hollow of their decayed body that was 2,000 years dead or whatever. And they poured, plaster into it. And then when they broke it apart, you'd see the people in their death throes, how they suffocated and died. And that's how these people are remembered. Probably thinking when they woke up that morning, had some eggs, had some bacon, maybe contemplated how to make some graphite out of some stray minerals that they could combine together, that suddenly they were going to become a museum piece like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I believe the artist who made statues like that, really famous. What was his name? Pompeii. Yeah, Pompeii.
Pompeii.
Love that artist.
Yes. Well, but see, that's kind of the key, isn't it? Is that natural order we have no control over, like the natural world. If it decides.
Are you sure you want to stick to that? You do know we have a certain somebody in the house who would beg to differ.
Well, if you're talking about controlling the weather through cloud seeding, that's
of course. How else do you get earthquakes?
I thought that earthquakes were a natural phenomenon of the tectonic shift.
So did I, but apparently I've been wrong my whole life. Which is not.
Wyatt, have you ever watched The Chosen on television? Well,
I've chose not to.
You chose not to. So you are unchosen, or you chose not. You chose not to watch The Chosen. Chosen is a very, actually very popular series about the life of Christ, but in a dramatic thing. I don't know if dramatic thing was the best way to describe that. Why? My apologies. Can I withdraw that? Can I withdraw that?
Can you name a single thing where dramatic thing is the most appropriate way to describe something?
I'd like to withdraw that, Your Honor.
Motion denied. Come on, we still got some comedy to milk out of this.
Dang it. Well, anyways, it is a very popular episodic drama about the life and times of Jesus. But here's what they do that's different. And I want to get your opinion on this, Wyatt, because not because I want your opinion, but we got to kill time. I was curious. What I liked about them was that they take the stories of the Bible, right? But then, let's say the story is like, okay, have you ever heard the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead?
Oh yeah, I thought they would think there was a book about that.
Yeah, it's in a book, but a very popular book, I might add. So here's what we know. So Jesus is coming to this place, and he gets this word on the street. Lazarus is sick, he's dying. Can you please come and heal him? Because people knew this guy was doing this miraculous stuff like that. Help us. Lazarus is your friend. Come help him, please, Jesus. Please, Jesus. Don't let Lazarus die. So he says, yeah, I'm going to wait a little bit. And they're like, no, we need to come immediately. And they're like, well, he's sleeping, and the apostles are like, well, let him sleep. He probably could use rest. He's not feeling good. And what he meant was he's dead. So Jesus literally waited for him to die, shows up. It's about 3 or 4 days later. His Mary, Martha, his sisters, like, Jesus, if you were just here, he would have made it, but he's been dead now. And Jesus said, oh, where's your faith? Didn't I say, that you're going to see the miraculous in God's work on earth? And so he says, roll away the stone. And they go, but he stinks right now. He's been dead 4 days in the desert. My brother's decaying corpse is stinky. And he goes, no, just have faith. And anyways, he says, Lazarus, come forth. And he comes back from the dead and comes walking out with like grave clothes over him. And it's like, he's got to be going, what the, hey, somebody, what happened? And like a practical joke. So it's an interesting story, clearly, and a fascinating story and a miraculous story, and one of the many miraculous stories of Jesus. But, the story is the story. It's recorded. We get the information. That's that. And so what The Chosen does is it takes some dramatic license, and it will kind of like add, like, what did Jesus talk to his disciples about as they're walking to find Lazarus? And maybe it took him a day or two to get there. What else did he talk to? What did he say to Lazarus after he was raised from the dead? Like, what kind of conversation? So they kind of fill in those gaps to make it interesting. And I got to be honest, I like it because they make it feel relatable, not like some sort of mystical story that is recorded that we kind of don't get access to. They try to make it down to earth, so like it would have been. These people are experiencing stuff they don't know how to grasp. And so I find it, just as long as it's not unbiblical or heretical in some sense, and some people have said so. Some people have complaints about this show because they say, well, they're taking liberties and we don't know this happened or that. But it's like, no, we're dramatizing what we don't know around the stories we do know. Okay, so that's the thing. So Zebedee's in there. He's the father of James, I think, John. And so he's the one where Jesus went past them while they were all fishing. And he says, hey, drop your nets and follow me. And I'm thinking the dad's going, excuse me? We're fishing. I'm sure they can come hang out with you afterwards. What's your name again? Jesus? Okay. Well, Jesus, thank you. I appreciate it, but I've got work to do and my sons are here to help. Nope, they're gone. We're out of here. So, that would make for interesting interplay and conversation, human experience, trying to go, what's going on? What is happening here? So that's what I think is interesting about this. And so we're going to talk to the man, Nick Shakoour, who plays Zebedee, about how he got the gig and what's it like, and is it hard, and is there a lot of responsibility for representing a biblical character about the greatest story in human history? So we're going to talk to him about that, but that's about stories that happened back 2,000 years ago, about the God that we serve that revealed himself in Christ. But Wyatt, there's a lot of things that are happening today, in this day and age. And one of the men that seems to pop up every now and again, I don't know if you heard about him, his name is Donald Trump.
Name may have come up one or twice.
Yeah. So he jumped into the game a little bit and said, you know, I'm a billionaire. I've made some money. I've had my partying days. They're all gone. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to become the president of the United States, and that's not easy to do. White. I got to be honest with you. I tried it a couple of times, and it's exhausting to try to get people to vote for you and not shoot you. That's really the key. Ducking constantly. Wyatt. It's ridiculous. But he has recently made a big deal about tariffs. Now, are you familiar with what a tariff is? If I were to say to you, hey, if you heard about the tariffs, what would you say?
Love that word. Favorite word, yeah. I know what tariffs is.
What is it?
A tariff is defined as a tax on the importing of goods from foreign nations.
Now, why would somebody do that? Isn't that being mean?
No.
No?
It's effectively the equivalent of taxes we have on citizens, except it's on countries now.
Okay, and so why would we do that mean thing?
Well, aside from the fact that all of the other countries in the world have done it to us for the past decades and decades, it's a great way to raise money for the country without digging into the pockets of the working class.
Now listen, I also believe, if I'm not mistaken, that if you reduce the profit margin on a product, that what the entire impetus. Did you ever do economics in school? Did you?
What do you mean? Did I do economics in school? What do you think they were teaching us? How to live?
Yeah.
No. I had to learn that the mitochondria was the powerhouse of the cell.
Ah.
Not what the mitochondria is, what it does, how it functions. Just that one tidbit.
So mitochondria seems to place tariffs on cellular structure.
Absolutely not. But for the sake of this argument, yes.
Okay. Well, anyways, what I wanted to get at was I was trying to find a way to sequence all this back together so I could go find.
That's great. Don't do that.
Okay, I failed. But meanwhile, back at the original premise, I was curious about it because a capitalist society tries to make profit or money or income or revenue through goods and services sold. So the first thing you have to do is you got to come up with something that people want. I remember watching Shark Tank. Did you ever watch Shark Tank? Well, I did.
Never really got into it. It's just a bunch of young, aspiring entrepreneurs literally betting on which billionaire takes advantage of them least. So I was never a fan of that show.
I don't know what you're talking about. Show? No. It's a Shark Tank where you see sharks.
You mean like an actual Shark Tank?
What were you talking about?
I was thinking of the other Shark Tank.
What other one is there? In an aquarium? I'm talking about the big aquariums we used to go visit.
I'm sorry. I was thinking finance. You were thinking James Bond. I understand.
All right. I don't know what you mean. But let's just pretend there was a show that they referenced as Shark Tank. And entrepreneurs were seeking income, investment. Yeah, let's just pretend that's true.
Yeah.
So I heard a guy once say this on Shark Tank. And by the way, I'm joking. I do know what Shark Tank is.
Of course you do.
You do? Okay.
I still think the James Bond one was better, though.
Here's the deal. He said this thing, and I never forgot. I thought it was such a simple way to define how to create a profitable organization, a business, right? And here's what he said. He said, find a problem, fix it, and you have a business. And I'm like, wow, it's so easy, but that's true. How many times have you seen a product come on like, okay, let me give you an example. It just popped into my head, but it gives you an example. Have you have a car, you drive around. Have you ever dropped something through the side of your seat between the console and your seat? And he's like, you drop a pen or something, and you're like, and you're trying to dig in and grab it. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, in fact, I know exactly what product you're talking about.
What is that?
Because I saw it on a TV show.
What?
Well, I mean, we were talking about Shark Tank.
Yeah.
But it was featured on another TV show.
Right.
World's Dumbest Inventions.
Which one was this?
I think it was episode 13.
But what was the dumb invention?
Basically a little black cushion thing that you can fit in between the seat cushions to catch stuff that falls.
Now, had it been a maroon thing or a green thing as opposed to a black thing, would you found it more appealing, or was it just the color itself that you found so repulsive?
It's the fact that all you have to do is reach under the seat and get the stuff.
But that's the point. It's like, why is it, oops, I got to drag, you're driving, you're trying to grab your phone.
Why would you try to get it when you're driving? And this was your passport, in which case, what was it doing outside your pocket?
Okay, well, so you apparently live in some mysterious utopian world where everything goes perfect.
Exist, and you don't have to keep everything on your dash.
Well, anyways, it falls through the thing. Everybody's had that happen. So here's the thing.
Yes.
We've all had this happen, but none of us stopped and said, you know what? Why don't they have a tray or some kind of device that keeps this stinking stuff from falling through? And of all the people that missed an opportunity for income, it's the car manufacturers that never thought people are annoyed by this feature, this gaping wound between the middle console and their seat and dropping crap in it. Can we have some catching device? And you can sell it to us as an alternate piece of functioning for my car. And they didn't do it.
How do you know that the car manufacturers did know that there was a solution to it, but didn't use it because they thought watching people stumble around and get their stuff was funny?
So they can watch us? They have little cameras to watch? So they get enjoyment out of that?
It's the 21st century. Where isn't there a camera pointing at your face?
Let me tell you something about the 21st century. I was talking about tariffs, right?
At one point, yeah.
Okay. So... So we were talking about Donald Trump and his tariffs, right? Australian Prime Minister surprised after external territories, including tiny Norfolk Island and remote islands, home to penguins, targeted by U.S. President. Okay, a group of barren, uninhabited volcanic islands near Antarctica, covered in glaciers and home to penguins, has been swept up in Donald Trump's trade war as the U.S. president hit them with a 10% tariff on goods. Heard Island and McDonald Islands, which form an external territory of Australia, are among the remotest places on Earth, accessible only via a 2-week boat voyage from Perth on Australia's west coast. They're completely uninhabited, with the last visit from people believed to be nearly 10 years ago. Nevertheless, Heard and McDonald Islands featured in a list released by the White House of countries that would have new trade tariffs imposed. The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Thursday, "Nowhere on earth is safe."
Next thing you tell me they're going to tear off the moon.
Heard Island and McDonald Islands are among several external territories of Australia listed separately in the tariff list. Australia will see a 10% tariff imposed on its goods. So we're talking about like Norfolk Island has a population of 2,188 people. And so it's like 1,000 miles northeast of Sydney. Was slugged with a tariff of 29%, minus 19% points higher than the rest of Australia. So I got to say, what is this about? And a lot of people say, well, it seems foolish. It seems absurd to tariff a small uninhabited island. But penguins are there. And let me tell you something about penguins, Wyatt. They have never, and I repeat, ever paid their fair share. They are always sitting there flipping around, they're all playing the cute game, popping off into their little Arctic waters, watching us film them, getting, I'm sure, a royalty on all the cute little penguin waddling, jumping stuff. And every now and again, we do get the joy of watching a killer whale eat them and flop them around. That's seals mainly. But penguins jump in. But they have made a lot of money off of us observing their absurd inability to fly, even though they're a bird. And yet we've paid them for that. Wyatt, when have they ever paid us back? When have the penguins ever once came to us and said, thank you. Thank you for coming to these uninhabited islands that normally when we do our little hoppy cuteness, nobody watches it. And you're filming it and you're making money. You're paying us royalties. Matter of fact, your most famous elegant suit for men, the tuxedo, was based on the look of the penguin. And yet, taxed? Never. Held accountable? Never. Asked if they're ever going to pay their fair share? Not at all. Finally, somebody has the courage to approach a penguin face to face, beak to nostrils, and says, buddy, it's time to pitch in. The free ride is over. Welcome to the real world, Wyatt. Now, I give you the last word.
Look, say what you will about whether or not it makes sense to tear off a bunch of flightless birds.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if every single member of them can afford a tuxedo, they can afford a little bit of rent, you know? Every once in a while, you know?
That's what I'm saying.
Checking the mail first of every month, that sort of deal.
Yeah.
Come on. It ain't rocket science, people.
No. Matter of fact, they don't know what a rocket is. Why? They have been living in luxury off of the Antarctic area for, I don't know, thousands of years. I don't know how long.
Too long is how long it was.
Well, too long without paying a little tax, little tariff on their waddling. So I just say to you, those of you who are complaining, here's what I find fascinating too, Wyatt, about the people that don't like Donald Trump, is they say this, and I've heard it a few people get on and say, "Are you happy now? Now that he's been a few months, look what he's doing. Now are you happy? Now do you believe why we said not to vote for him?" And it's like, first off, you weren't going to vote for him anyways because you didn't believe in any of the things he said he was going to do. All the people that did vote for him actually wanted a secure border so people can come in and harm our citizens. So he kind of did what he said. So you're saying, are you happy now? And the answer is, for people that voted for him, yeah, that's kind of what we said. Can you help us out from the gangs that have come in here and are wiping out our citizenry? So yeah, they're kind of happy. They're happy that they're trying to gut the government waste. Who in the world, Wyatt, would want... These are the same people who said, you're going to cut Medicaid, you're going to cut welfare. What are the poor people of America going to do when there's no money left? You know why there's no money left? Because they're wasting it on government junk. And they're coming in to change it, cut these fees off, and leave the money for the citizens, for Medicare, for your welfare. They're actually giving it back to us. I don't understand. How can you hate somebody so badly that even the good things he does for you, you find repulsive? I see these people, Wyatt, as penguins. People who have had a free ride are kind of cute, but have never had to pay their fair share. And now that they're face to face with what responsibility looks like, they are just hopping off into the little water, having a nice leisurely swim until a killer whale swallows them whole. Wyatt, I give you the last word.
Oh, you comparing regular people paying their fair share of money to a
Orca.
Eviscerating a flightless bird?
Without any remorse whatsoever.
You know what? That's not the direction I thought you were going to take it, but I kind of understand.
Okay.
I kind of get it.
What direction did you think I was going to take?
Any other one, really. I'm not picky. Really, any other direction would have worked.
So have you ever seen the pictures of these orcas grabbing like these seals and just springing? It's horrifying. It's terrible. Because they're seals.
I can tell by the fact that you are literally struggling to hold off the laughter.
Well, listen, but seals are so cute. Penguins are so cute. Have you ever thought, and do you think that adds to the distress when we witness this on film? In other words, if it was if it was a possum, one of the ugliest animals of all, and they grabbed it and started whipping it around with its little pink rat-like nose oddness with the kind of telescopic tail, weird eye pink, and they were eating them, we wouldn't care. So what I'm getting at is this: if you want to get some sympathy while you're being eaten alive, be cute. Be cute.
I don't know. I mean, that actually reminds me of this this thing I actually read once. There's a theory that the reason why humans want to hug cute things is a natural instinct to try to kill it because it's so cute we don't know what to do, so we need it to die so it's less cute.
Really?
I'm not saying it's true. That's a theory, though. That's an actual, genuine theory. And I'm just saying, again, not the direction I would take, but I kind of understand. I kind of get it, you know? Like,
I don't get that. I don't.
You don't get wanting to strangle the life out of like a puppy or like something. Am I alone in this?
I think you are.
Am I?
Wyatt, I think after all these years of being on the podcast, people,
I'm not
people are seeing a dark
side. I'm not saying lethally, just, to a reminder of sorts.
Did you just say on camera to thousands of people around the world that sometimes when you are in the presence of a puppy, a cute, sweet little puppy, you want to remind them of sorts every now and again? You know, your life is literally in my hands. Wyatt, what in the world has possessed you? Please tell me.
Of course I'm not saying that to thousands of viewers. I'm saying it to tens.
You want to strangle a puppy?
No! I'm saying I totally understand the mentality of some people. You know what? Let's change topics, actually. I just remembered a really good pie I had, actually, the other day.
Did you strangle the life out of it by any chance before you ate it? Because it was cute?
Oh, wait, I've already told the story?
Oh, okay. Well, listen, here's what you need to understand. We are living in a country, in a culture where people are angry, Wyatt. They're angry at each other. They're angry at people that disagree with them. They're angry at people that don't behave the way they do. They're really angry at people for not seeing the world the way they see it. And I really understand that. Wyatt, I do understand that. Last week we had Dr. William Lane Craig, which just still, Wyatt, I got to tell you, when I saw the Instagram posts that we sent out, the little mini clips, and I'm looking at this back-to-back of me talking to and curiosity, referencing and responding to Dr. William Lane Craig, who I have watched and admired for years. I have watched him in debates. I have listened to his lectures for years. I have his books. Just a double doctorate. I mean, just a philosophical genius who was ranked the 19th most influential philosopher in the world. And I'm looking at this, and there I am talking to him, and it was, Wyatt, it was surreal. I couldn't believe I'm the guy that gets to talk to him. I just admire his work so much. And so it was astonishing to me, and so grateful to God that he gave me that opportunity because I'm such a fan. And so to watch this take place and see that we live in a world where people are trying to make sense of what the meaning of life actually is. And one of the things that we discovered through atheism is that there is no meaning to life if atheism is true, because atheism, by the simple foundational philosophy, states that we as humans simply evolved from a survival instinct, which can't be true because instinct has a sense that there's a purpose, and we know that there is no purpose to life. And as Dr. Craig so eloquently said, no true thinking atheist would think life has meaning, because that's the whole point. We are organisms. We are no different than amoebas. We are no different than mollusks. We are no different than puppies that some people think evil of, and some nefarious things they want to do to them while petting them, at least in their mind. But yet, they don't live like life has no meaning. And Wyatt, I have spoken to atheists. I have seen atheists in real time discussing these ideas. And I have said this before, I'll say it again. I don't think I have ever met an atheist that understands this incongruity. In other words, they will admit life has no meaning, and yet they will say this: so, since life has no meaning, We give it our own meaning. And for them not to go, you don't understand. If there is no actual meaning, if the teleology, the fact that there is meaning inherent in the universe as a concept, doesn't exist because nothing created us, nothing designed us. This is an accident. We are too big for our britches, became self-aware. None of the evil penguins that have taken a free ride without paying taxes for thousands of years, they don't contemplate meaning. They just want a herring. That's all they want, Wyatt, is a herring. And not being eaten by people who wanted to pet them and then think evil thoughts. I'm just saying. I didn't bring that up. You did.
And I'll do it again.
I know you will, because that's what keeps this.
Look, man, we've got 40 minutes to fill. I got to find space somewhere.
Well, Lord have mercy. Did you choose a...
It's called paying one's dues, taking one for the team. Insert other analogy here.
Okay, bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Make sure
cliffhanger.
no, I'm not. Nope.
Skin of our teeth.
That one's a bit more, but what about the cliffhanger thing? No, that's not right.
It's not cliffhanger.
But yeah, honestly, you're kind of right. It is the most common argument I've heard atheists say, and I've never heard one even attempt to justify it.
Well, but here's the thing, White, and it's the thing that I said to Dr. Craig, and I actually at one point said, I apologize for re-asking the same question, because I asked him 2 or 3 different ways to try to get some sense of, and I only said it to him, he's a theist, he's a Christian, but he's spoken to so many top-notch thinking atheists. Again, I'm not talking about internet atheists. They do not think. They're philosophically savvy. They are not deep. They don't even care. All they do is insult and malign and put little funny emoji faces that are laughing with tears coming out of their eyes and think they did something deep. So if that's how you think, you can go play by yourself because you have nothing to offer. But for the deep thinking atheists who know that the God concept is incredibly important, the ideas are very, very legitimate and need to be taken seriously because it is the ultimate question. Is there a God? If so, it is the most important question there could ever be given. And men for thousands of years have contemplated it. If there's no God to consider, why would we even think about it? After we came up with modern science, why not just abandon the God thing, as Richard Dawkins would want to do, or Stephen Hawking when he said philosophy was dead? And yet we don't. More and more people believe in God, the more sophisticated we come. Why? Because clearly we are designed to seek God because He is real. God is real. And also, if God were real, He would be the most complex, the most sophisticated, the most powerful, the most unimaginable entity, being, whatever the proper term for God would be, that could ever exist. Not just exist, could ever exist. He is the quintessential, ultimate, not a person.
Go on.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. What do you call him? A being, a spirit, a mind? He's God. I'm limited in even trying to define what it would mean to be God. And for that guy to have created those of us who are humans, who are confined to 3 dimensions and are confined to basically 5 senses interpreting reality and trying to find Him. And yet, Wyatt, God limited how close we could get to Him, it appears. That's one of the great problems people have with God, is what they call the hiddenness of God, where people sometimes say, where are you? Just show up and we'll all believe in you. But even when Jesus was around, did miraculous things, some looked at Him and worshiped Him, and other people went to tell the Pharisees, hey, He's doing miracles over here. You want to do something about this? So it proves it doesn't matter, Wyatt. It doesn't matter what evidence is given to people. Some people's hearts are hard, and yes, they're going to hell. Not because God wants them there. They looked Him in the eyes, shook their fist, and says, no need for you. It was the original sin. It's what Lucifer did when he was in God's presence and said, I think I'll be God now. And God said, really? Where do you get a load of this? And this is the dilemma that humans find themselves in. You know, Brad Stein Has Issues, this podcast, was a hybrid of my comedy that people apparently like, or at least some do, and my philosophy and desire to do apologetics and logic and reason and discover the deepest things of life, which is God. It's a whatever that word is. Find it, figure it out. If you can pronounce it, tell yourself that. Hybridizing. But anyways, we're still growing in it. Here's what I need you to do. If you are listening to this on Life Audio on Spotify or Apple Tunes, I need you to go to Brad Stein Has Issues YouTube. I need you to subscribe to it, and I need you to go on and give it a 5-star rating. Now, I know you're thinking, well, whoa, that's a little ego-driven, huh? What do you mean give it a 5? What if I don't think it is a 5? And I'm saying, just do it. Just do it. Just for gags, just for giggles. Give it a 5. Why? It puts you in an algorithm where more people can see you. You share it. Just go give it. And listen, if you absolutely hate this and you're watching it, then that should tell you something. If you hate me and you watch this, then give it a 5-star rating, because at least I've entertained you enough to make you hate me enough to want to keep watching when you should have just turned the channel if you really don't like me. But anyways, we're trying to grow it. We're trying to find a means to have even more interesting guests, more interesting segments, more interesting projects. It's just my son and I, Wyatt, and we're doing our best, but God has blessed us. We are on the Life Audio Salem Network, and we are on our YouTube channel, and we're trying to grow it. So if you believe in this, also go to bradstein.com, join the Militia of the Mind. This will give us your email so we can let you know what we're up to, where I'm going, where I'm going to be live. So this is what we're trying to grow, and we're still experimenting. We're still trying to integrate deep things, important things with humor, because there's either the deep guys or the funny guys. I'm trying to be the both guys. That's why I have like a William Lane Craig, and why I have performing artists. Why? Because I am one. I'm a stand-up comic, but I'm also an actor. And the man that you are about to listen to in interview, Nick Shakoour, is an actor on one of the most popular episodic religious epics, I think, ever. The Chosen, very popular, even had I think it's coming up, or it's already had a film version of it as well. Well, Nick's got a book out about his life, about what happened to him, how he came to Christ, because when he became Zebedee in The Chosen, he wasn't a believer. So being around Christians and what God did with him, and I mean some deep, spiritual, amazing things, changed him forever. He wrote a book. We're going to talk about it. We're going to find the link so you can have access to it. But for those of you who might be fans of The Chosen and have watched it, you will recognize him as Zebedee. And he's an interesting guy. He's also, and a lot of people didn't know this, why, a voiceover guy. And if you pay attention and you happen to watch some cartoons, it's for kids. He's 2 well-known voices in a well-known cartoon for children, and that kind of comes up later in the interview, so it's kind of a cool surprise. So this is what we're trying to do. So please, 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 if you are fans and if you are new, please go to Brad Stein Has Issues on YouTube, subscribe, and go give it a 5-star rating. See if we can grow this podcast into something magnificent and even more unorthodox and creative and unique, so nobody sees what's coming. But nevertheless, I hope it inspires you. I hope it drives you to Christ, it drives you to God, but it also, if you're not there yet, begins the process of thinking, of caring, and knowing that there is a greater purpose in life than the meaninglessness that we discussed last week with Dr. Craig, that atheism gives us. If you live a life that needs meaning, wants meaning, if you're an atheist that thinks that I can make my own meaning, you've just proven that you need it to function, and it doesn't exist in your worldview. It does in mine. You might want to come over to the family. So this is why this is important, and it's why Brad Stein Has Issues exists, with the hope of encouraging people to find the creator of all things, who happens to be their father and made you in his image. Whatever it is you think you don't connect to as a person, it's in God and it's in Christ and who he calls you and how he defines you, not in some demonic means of reinterpreting your body to somehow make it make sense to you. That is just there to destroy you. God is coming to heal you. And you're going to get some of that just in this discussion with a man who had his own experience with God while playing a very important character in the greatest book of history, the Bible, in talking about the greatest story of all time, the story of the most famous human there ever was, Jesus Christ. So I really think, especially for fans, this is going to be a treat. So please welcome Zebedee in The Chosen, or as I like to call him, Nick Shakoour. How do you do, my brother? How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, so I'm not nearly as cool as you. You're a Hollywood guy, I guess, or wherever you are, Century City.
California guy, California. I mean,
What part of California you live in?
like Bay Area.
Oh, really? You're way up there. What part of the Bay Area?
Can't say because
All right, all right. We'll leave it.
some,
We won't bring up Oakland. We won't bring up Oakland.
it's right there, right in the center of it. Now,
Okay.
some sweet people have already discovered my address and been sending me devotionals and things like that. It's been very fun.
Oh, really? Do
Yeah.
you have some stalkers with an agenda of spiritual flavor to it? That's interesting. Well,
Yeah,
I
it's the
didn't.
best kind of stalkers to have actually, because I wouldn't want, it's a like the most they're gonna do is like I joke around and say, what are they gonna do? Pray me to death? Like they're not gonna.
Right. Well, they maybe what they could do is stab you and then lay hands on you and heal it. So maybe we could get a double. I don't know. Well, that's an interesting kind of intro into this whole saga that you have found your career moving you into. And I wanted to talk about The Chosen because it has been such a landmark series. It's gotten a lot of heat for a lot of good reasons. There's been some controversies, but I guess that probably keeps it interesting as well. But I guess you know what? Let's save the juicy bits for towards the end. Let's find out a little bit about you because acting is hard. To be a good actor is hard as well. But to be a working actor is the single hardest thing you can do.
Yeah,
And you finally grabbed yourself the brass ring. So tell us just a little bit in your own words, in whatever tempo you want, about kind of how you got into the business, who you are, how you see yourself, even as far as an artist, actor, whatever that might be. Just so we have a good, nice rounding of you as a person, and then we'll move into the deeper stuff.
it's interesting that you say how see myself, and that leads to what I wrote about in the book as far as the Holy Spirit encounter, how all that got burned away. Like I couldn't see myself as anything but pretty much a child of God, not a perfect one, but still, that's solely where my identity lies. But at the start, it was you kind of remind me a little bit of him, and I like it. Mr. Benton, he was my elementary school PE teacher. So the roots kind of started there. There's a chapter in the book called My Superpower, and this guy, my PE teacher was like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. And he would do monologues on stage before the start of each class. And one day he wanted us to try to get up and make the rest of the class laugh so they can know how their diaphragms worked. And being a shy immigrant kid who was pretty new to the States from Beirut, Lebanon, I kind of sheepishly raised my hand because I would make fun of my relatives at family gatherings. And my mom would say, oh, do your uncle, now do your aunt, or how does your cousin act like? So I ended up getting on stage and doing all the teachers. Looked over, Mr. Benton was on the ground in fetal position, a bear hugging himself, agonizing laughter. And he kept rolling his finger going, no, 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 keep going. So 45 minutes goes by and I do improvisation for the whole class, for the rest of the remaining class. Bell rings, they leave. He comes over, waddles over, puts his arm on me. He goes, kid, you're really funny. So he's like my first unofficial talent agent at this point. He takes me to the principal's office and he tries to convince Mr. Heron, our principal, can he do this for all my classes today? And the principal said, absolutely not. This is against child labor laws. Like, you
Right.
can't have him perform hour sets for the 7 hours throughout the day. That's ridiculous.
I think it's the Jackie Coogan clause, if I remember properly.
Is
But
that what it is? It's
well,
something
yeah,
like
he was
that?
the one. He was the one that originally got the lawsuit to protect child actors because his parents stole all the
Oh,
money.
the Coogan account. That's right. That's
Mhm.
right. That's where it comes from.
Yeah,
I wasn't even getting paid for this. I was just going to school.
yeah, right.
And so they reached a compromise. He basically said, you can have him do it, but he's got to do it once. and it's got to be for the entire school on stage. And I thought, yikes. So I'm basically in history class with Mr. Gear, and I asked him, hey, can I leave 15 minutes before class? Because now I have lingo. Like I'm 8 years old here. And I said, oh, I got to go work on my set before I do my show.
Yeah, that's nice.
And he was like, what? He was like, okay, fine. Yeah, go do it. So I'm on stage. Mr. Benton's got the rope in hand, and I can hear 2,000 people fill up in the auditorium because the gymnasium served as our auditorium. And all the teachers that I was going to parody were there. The students were there. I was ready to run off the stage, and Mr. Benton said, don't worry, you're going to do great. And then he just pulled the curtain before I could ask him a question. And next thing I knew, I was doing what I did for Mr. Benton's class for the whole school. Started off bombing, trying to be funny. And it was very awkward, dude. It was like crickets. And then I let go of everything. Something came over me. I stopped myself and I said, there's nothing to be afraid of. Just do what you did in this class and don't try to make anybody laugh. Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And then boom, everybody just started laughing. Even Miss Costello, our hefty yard duty lady with somewhat spiked mullet haircut, was cracking up at my impression of her. And that's kind of when my shyness dissipated. And I talk about in the book how I won't give away the ending to the chapter because it's kind of sweet how I mention him in there, but that chapter is pretty much dedicated to Mr. Benton because in the book, I give everybody superpowers. So it's got a superhero theme. It's not like a regular autobiography. And so each person that's affected my life in a very intimate way and has poured into it gets a superpower written out in italics. So Mr. Benton's superpower I describe as refueling your own superpower. So that day he did something that left a mark on me forever, for the rest of my life. And although I didn't pursue acting until my 30s, that was always there because he always called it as, oh, you're very talented. That was the first time I'd heard the word talent. Because again, I'm grew up in this Lebanese, Armenian, Greek family. And outside of that, I don't have much exposure other than television and then what I'm learning at school. And then to hear this grown up say, you have talent, it kind of made me feel special as a kid. Like, oh, that was something that I had that made me kind of feel like I had something to offer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you you touched on so many elements of live performing that I wasn't expecting. That's what I love about interviews is, they're very organic if you're listening. There's something interesting.
You're listening.
Yeah, well, some people aren't. They're just waiting for you to shut up for the next question to be delivered. And I actually want a real interview. I want you. I don't even watch other guys' because you have stuff out there of you supporting this book in your life in interviews. I don't watch them because I want to be surprised, even if it's something you've said 25 times. Let it be first time for me because then I get to act legitimately, authentically, and I'm an actor, so I also think in those terms. Let the surprise be the fun of where this goes because we don't know. That's the beauty of acting that most people don't understand. They think it.
Yeah.
I think most people think acting is memorizing your script and saying your line, hitting your mark, and then the guy says their line and you say it back, and then they say cut and you go home. And they don't understand how much free form and sort of authenticity you're hopefully allowing to take place in a scene, especially if the director is pretty open to that. Obviously, you have to get things accomplished because you got a lot of money involved and you got to get scenes wrapped. But by the same token, boy, let the actors play because that's what they're good at and that's what they will do. They'll make it feel like a human is being observed as opposed to a person portraying a character. That's not acting.
I feel like it's confining when you don't have that freedom. It's kind of like there's no point in being an actor because that's the whole reason is improvisation, connection to God, inspiration.
Right. No.
You're not like I blank out most of the time when I'm performing. I don't even know what I did afterwards. Even if people say, "Oh, I love that choice that you did." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't make any choice."
Yeah, you know what? I it's an interesting thing, and I'll probably be repeating myself for my fans. Some of the fans I've watched a lot of my interviews, but for those who haven't, maybe this will be interesting. I love breaking down the work for people that watch because even though I have apologists on and philosophers or atheists. I just want interesting people that are truth tellers, whatever their expertise is. But when it comes to the performance arts, I love being able to dive into that because I do it. I've been in, I don't know, 25 movies and been a stand-up comic for 30 something years. So,
No.
I was a professional magician before I started everything. So I'm quite a Renaissance man. And I love just the joy of this very odd, um, skill set and very possibly ability to make a living doing this creative thing where you become something else or you're trying to project an idea to people through the screen and the freedom that comes with being able to really just it's hard to explain. I don't even know why I'm explaining
No,
it.
I know what you're saying. It's like when I'm in that performance state, or some people call it the flow state,
Yeah,
inspired state.
yeah,
It's like anything and everything could happen. So when I feel like I know what's coming, then I know I'm not connected and I'm not doing it right
yeah.
because
Well, of
I'm not
course.
allowing myself to
Yeah,
just be. That was the big reason why. That was a major reason why I decided to sit down and write the book myself. I've I had four different offers, four different publishers for it, and even had ghostwriting offers, and it was a strong directive. Like, you're gonna write the truth of your life. You're gonna do it in a creative way, and it leads to the Holy Spirit encounter. Otherwise, don't do it, because if somebody else touches this, regardless of how fantastic they are at writing and for how vivid they can write, it's still going to have a level of taintedness to it
yeah,
because it's not really going to be from you, and you're kind of going to be a fraud putting this book out there when
yeah.
you're not the one who fully wrote it. So I didn't do a compromise, but in a sense I hired my cousin from Greece who's an English teacher, and I said, I don't want you to write it for me. I'm going to send you everything I'm writing, but I want you to show me the tools of writing, but also want you to catch grammatical issues, sentence
Yeah.
structure
Well, it's
issues.
like an editor. I mean, that's not cheating.
Yeah, be a teacher. Like, I
Yeah.
want you to be a teacher, but and then she introduced me to the wonderful world of adverbs and sentence connectors. She basically opened up her toolbox and said, "Here is everything I know.
Yeah.
This is what this tool does. This is what this tool does." So then I was able to pick up on that in a year and a half and learn how to take all those tools and say, okay, now I can be Nick, but in writing form. I'm going to perform this book, but I'm going to perform it as a writer. And so it reads more like an action packed comic book than it does, I grew up here and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
Well, good. I
because,
mean, why
yeah,
not? Why not give it some flavor and
yeah,
layers because that's what life is. It
yeah.
isn't boring and static. It's got a lot to talk about it. And the truth is, um, you said some things up front like, "Oh, I was going up to do my when you were a young kid and you had this opportunity to work in front of these 2,000 people. That's quite a crowd, and you're kind of bombing, right? You're bombing at first, and you're like, oh no, and I'm like going, I have no sympathy for you. I could care less.
Oh, no, 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 no. Yeah.
I've been a stand-up comic for 33 years, so you
That's
got
hard.
nothing.
That's hard. That's hard.
I will see your bombing and raise you 50 bombings, and because stand-up comedy is so dangerous, and
Yes.
I it makes me wonder. I've never really tried to unravel this, but because again, I hope the conversation is taking its own organic form. It did spark an idea to me, and I often wonder to myself, why does it seem like stand-up comics are not always, but usually pretty good actors? Why can comics suddenly become actors? And I think I knew of one reason that I had conjectured, and that is to be a great actor, you have to really be sensitive to human behavior. You have to be very sensitive
Hmm.
to just how people act, how they think, how they feel. And so if you're in class like I was, and maybe you did, I don't know if you took acting class or not, but if you were, they depending on the style you took and the Stanislavski stuff and Uta Hog and whatever, doing all the sensory stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, I hated the sensory stuff because I felt like this is stupid. If I'm in coming in from a blizzard. I remember one of my acting teachers. He's like going, "Listen, if you come into the scene and it's been freezing out, and two or three lines later you go, man, it is cold outside." And the first time I realized it's cold outside is when you said it 3 lines later. You didn't do it right. Because if you walked in from a cold, you would know. The moment you walked in, you would, woo, whatever, you would know because I really came in from the cold. I wouldn't need to indicate it with my words. So your job is to take reality into this false environment and sell it. So I think comics are aware of the human condition and the idiosyncrasies of humanity because that's what we joke about. The stuff everybody says, "Oh, I've thought of that. Oh, I've done that." Yeah.
Comics, what I think what people don't understand, and I've been asked many times actually if I do stand up, and I said no, that's not my thing. Like I never really aspired to be that. And my whole background in acting came from interning at a voiceover studio in San Francisco, and it's in a it's in the chapter called "Keeping It Real," and this is when I moved out for the first time with my college buddies, and one prank call led to another at a friend's house. My best friend outed me saying Nick can do voices, and I was like, "No, dude, I don't say that. There's like girls around and all these people." So we ended up not going out to a nightclub, but we stayed up till midnight, all dressed up, with me prank calling various restaurants, asking if my granddaughter was at a TGI Fridays restaurant as an elderly woman, and antics like that and incorporated into the book. But I ended up interning at a voiceover studio where one day the office manager said, the owner, her name was Elaine Clark, and she said, the deal is you could take the intro classes for free, and then the advanced voiceover workshops, you get half off. And then in return, you also get 3 units college credit, that's amazing. I was going to SF State at the time. So one day her office manager asked me if I could tidy up the bathroom kind of sheepishly before the next class. And I just thought, well, my mom always had us clean up the bathroom. This is not a big deal. 45 minutes, she comes, knocks on the door and finds me on the ground with cleaning gloves and bleach, scrubbing on the floor. She goes, "Oh my gosh, Nick, I didn't want you to actually clean the bathroom. I just meant like replace the toilet paper." And I'm just looking at her confused going, "Yeah, but this is what my mom usually means, like when she says tidy up the bathroom." So she shook her head and she went, "Oh my gosh, Nick, I'll be back." She goes, talks to Elaine, comes back and tells me Elaine wanted me to let you know you could take all the classes here for free.
Wow.
So I ended up taking about $7,000 worth of voiceover workshops within my year and a half of internship. I didn't gel with most of them because, like you again, it was all a little bit too mental.
Yeah.
And for me, this innate ability, going back to what Mr. Benton discovered, it always takes me back to what was it that Mr. Benton pointed out? What was it that he saw in you? Stick to that no matter what script you get, because that's never going to guide you wrong. And yeah, you're not going to book every role you audition for, but who cares? You're going to stick to your essence,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Well, and the other thing I think that did kind of pop up into my head that I don't know that I had thought before until we were talking, because you were talking about basically doing a stand-up set is what you were doing. I mean, it was an impressionist, but that's comedy. It's
Yeah.
just it's genre of comedies is impressions. But the other thing about stand-up comedy I'm realizing is you're fearless. You don't care. I will say and do
Yes.
whatever I want to do. I don't care. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna temper what I'm about to say. I'm not gonna
Nor should
censor
you.
it. I'm just going to, here's what I got, and I don't give a crap what you think about it. Now, that kind of fearlessness, that kind of throwing cares to the wind and just allowing yourself to completely deliver whatever is you and how you see it, how you feel it, without needing their approval or their
Mm.
dissent. I don't care. I don't care.
You're
I'm doing
describing
this.
what happened to me on
Yeah,
the stage. That's what
yeah.
happened after I stopped being nervous.
Well, that's why I was going to say that though, because
Ah,
you literally were describing some of the necessary techniques for somebody to have a shot at being a stand-up comic. You have to, I mean, it's hard. You got to go through it, and you got to make sure you're funny, and then you got to write a joke. So there are some technical aspects, just like with comedy, with acting. There are technical elements you do need to learn. But you either can do it or you can't. You either are
Yeah.
funny or not. That you can't. If you're not funny, you're not. I mean, there's nothing we can do. But what you said was so important, and I'm throwing it out here only because people listening might be trying to get into acting or comedy or just life. Maybe they have a sales presentation. I don't know. But the
Hmm.
point of the matter is, you have to believe in what you're saying. You
Hmm.
have to believe in it. And so I want to, if I had to say, like, I could tell people the secret to stand-up comedy, and it's probably a secret to acting, frankly, in 2 words. It's not enough, but if you know, you'll know what I mean. I would say to them, what's the key to getting up on stage when you're a little nervous? Have fun. That's the magic.
Seriously,
That's the magic.
seriously.
Just have fun. I don't care if you guys like it. I don't care if you laugh. I don't care if you boo
Yeah,
me. I'm
yeah,
not doing this for you to prove my worth. I'm giving you this because I like it. I think it's funny. I believe in it. And that's it. Well, what happens is, because people don't want to be made to feel uncomfortable. If they think you're bombing and you're letting in on, oh my God, I'm
hmm,
bombing, now you've made them uncomfortable, sensing you're eating it. Now you make me feel bad. Now I'm really angry that you've put me in this predicament because I didn't want to be here. I paid tickets to watch you bomb, and now I feel bad that this idiot's looking like
yeah,
a.
yeah, yeah.
So they need to trust that you can handle this and you're going to maneuver us out of this awkwardness and find the funny so we can join you. And so
Yeah.
you did that as an 8 year old. You just said, well, whatever. I'm just going to do what I did, and just that's enough, and trust it. And you had to get out of your left brain, had to get in your right brain, had to get in your creative side, let it take over. The left brain goes and hides because that's your engineer side,
Yes,
that helps drive you from A to B, and reminds you to brush your hair. But it's scared to death of vulnerability, and it's scared to
yes,
death of creativity, and it's scared to death of not pleasing. And the right brain, the muse brain, the transcendent brain, the creative brain, the brain that accesses the mind of God, that's the one that gives us art and beauty. So it was really interesting just to hear you describe that. And I had a similar experience. I'm I'll say it to you quickly just because it's interesting. I was like 6 years old. We were what, kindergarten. They decided we're going to have a show and tell. We're going to do a puppet show. So they said, "Who wants to play?" So I raised my hand. I'm six. I raised my hand. The other kid raised his hand. They didn't give us a script. We're just kids. They put us behind there. There's these puppets. Nobody knows what to do. We're going to do a puppet show. So I put on my puppet. Kid has his. I put it up, talking. And then I said, "Hey, you want to play hide and seek?" Okay. All right, I'll count. 1, 9, 15, 29, 630, 95. Kids are rolling. Kids are rolling because there's nothing funnier than the look at the old I don't know how to count routine when you're
yeah.
six. But my point was, the kids laughed. I remember feeling that sense of, oh, I'm killing it. I own this room, right? You're six. I didn't even
Hmm.
know this was in my life that I could
That's
do this.
amazing. It's very similar to my
Yeah.
experience. Wow.
And so I came, but here's you're gonna love this conclusion. We finished the set. I finished my puppet set. Kids think I'm amazing. Like the next week, they decide to do another show and tell. So she goes, "Let's do a puppet show." I guess it was such a success. It's time to do another puppet show. So I raised my hand because I'm thinking, well, she's going to have to pick me because clearly I am the puppet master of this room. And she didn't pick me. She picked two other kids. So I just remember all this, and so I know you're going to relate. I kind of sat back like, all right, let's see what you got because I know I kind of laid the groundwork for how to do this
Yeah.
puppetry. They get behind this thing, and here's what I watch happen. Hey, let's play hide and seek. 1, 7, 75, 65. Kids are rolling, and I'm looking around going, that's my bit. And nobody
You had your
acknowledged
bit
it.
stolen from childhood.
6 years old, wrote my first joke, had it ripped off a week later. Welcome.
Wow.
But my point is this, and then I'm gonna go give you back your box here to respond. But the point I guess what I'm making is because it was so synergistic to what you were telling me was, A, how can a 6 year old know something's going to be funny. So it's a gift. You have certain gifts that God gives you, because how would I know that? And then secondly, to sort of own this intellectual property, like that was my creativity, and
Yeah.
you've stolen that, and I
Yeah.
didn't get credit for it. But anyways, it literally just kind of mirrored your story,
Oh
that
yeah,
at a young
that's
age. But it makes me wonder, and then I'm going to let you take it. It makes me wonder, man. Are some people destined for certain um, skills, or certain life becomes their careers? Is it a destiny? Can people have those moments and then never invest in them, never get there? That there's some plumber somewhere who would have been the next Brando, but he just never did it. Are they out there and they've never fulfilled their destiny? What do you think about that?
it's it's interesting because there are tons of people out there with what we consider, regular jobs, and they have all these other talents and facets in them. So the argument lies in what's considered fulfilling your destiny with that. For example, had I not been known because of this TV show, would I still be fulfilling my destiny, maybe being a garbage man, yet performing for my coworkers and busting them out at, office meetings, making them laugh or doing impressions? I would still be fulfilling it. Meaning, I've had several conversations with people lately about what my trajectory was going to be. And little did I know that, oh, it was going to lead to a Holy Spirit encounter and knowing God, and then I was going to write a book about it, and I was going to decide not to go with a publisher. Like, I didn't aim to be a writer. Like, that's not my area of interest. It was torture writing this book for a year and a half, but it ended up being worth it because it's just the feedback I've gotten so far, and what it's done for some people that have read it. And it's like, well, that was part of my destiny. So I feel like it's a little bit of both. I feel like sometimes we don't know what our part of our destiny is, I'll say, because I don't think it's just one thing. So part of mine happened to be that you're going to go through this childhood upbringing, you're going to survive bombings in Lebanon, you're going to come here, you're going to perform stand up for the first time as a kid. And then later on, that seed that Mr. Benton points out and plants is going to flourish when you decide to really pursue acting in adulthood. But oh, that's not all, like an infomercial.
Yeah.
Then you wanting to be an actor is going to make sure that you go to Texas to be on the show called The Chosen, that serves as a conduit to then get you to make friends with locals who are going to invite you to a church conference that will lead to me meeting you for the first time as a tangible Holy Spirit encounter, body setting into flames, all that good stuff. So it's a little bit of both. So it's all personal. For me, once I decided that, okay, I really want to pursue voiceovers, I really want to do acting, there was this inner call that it had to be done on a larger scale. It it wasn't something I thought up in my mind, like, oh, I want to be a famous, like, it wasn't that. It was just like, bro, like, I started off in VO. I didn't want to do on camera acting because I was actually a very shy guy. I was always friendly with everybody, and I was never like a bad person or whatever. But it was always like, voiceover is more comfortable. I'm behind the mic. I work in production part time anyway, and I like that part of the world, and let the on camera people do their thing. But again, it's like, well, one thing led to another, and I got interested in on camera, and it's part of what I'm in this moment. Actually, I'm calling it this right now. It's you being blind to your destiny, but allowing God to lead you there at the same time. And I just got that kind of idea that came to me right now. So it's a little bit of both, where there was something in me that had to get out, and it felt like it had to be on a global scale. I I didn't really know what that was.
Mm.
And I knew already in my heart, it wasn't like I want to be Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt level or, Sylvester Stallone. It wasn't, there was something else that was speaking to my heart through God, but I just didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
So now doing The Chosen, and then that, more importantly, the encounter that happened, which changed a lot of things for me spiritually in life, and these other spiritual encounters that I've had since, and then writing the book, and now being curious to see what it's what it's going to do for people. Part of me's thinking, well, maybe all these little destinies have lined up to you writing this, and what this book might do to people, for people, that you could never do with your acting, with your voiceovers, because you've been using your voice, Nick, all this time for other people's projects. Yet you have yet to really use your voice for yourself and for me, more importantly. So, but I didn't see this as part of my destiny, man. Like,
Yeah.
I wrote a freaking book. Like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Well,
and,
but you,
know?
but you said we didn't really delve into that, and I don't want to sort of squelch the momentum because we definitely want to talk a lot about that, the chosen, and also, of course, this experience that happened to you that was so well, just will have so much repercussions, I think, in such a positive way. First, with your life, obviously, whenever we become connected to the living God, I mean, holy smoke, that's it. That you found your destiny. That's why you exist, is to know your creator. But then
Yeah.
the second reason you exist is to tell others about your creator. That's how it worked. The meaning of life was solved a long time ago. Uh, know God and share him with others. That's all it is. How you
Bro, I
do
think
that.
you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, number one, since the encounter happened, I can physically, tangibly sense him around me.
Yeah.
And that's what I think some people misinterpreted during my other interviews. Or, people may have misinterpreted that work in production on the show, where a lot of people thought I came to faith. And I kind of giggle, my family giggles, because my grandfather was a Greek Orthodox priest in Beirut,
Yeah.
Lebanon. So
Yeah.
if anyone was going to be the prime example of what it meant to be connected to God, it was him. Of course, that faith wavered as I became an adult. I went through, a horrible relationship breakup that sent me on a spiral of darkness that was totally unanticipated by myself. One of my prayers being, God, take my soul. I can't go to sleep like this every night. It's too dark when I wake up in the morning. It's it's all those kind of things. But it's just one of those things where it's like I sense him around me, and you're saying, how do you do it? Since this has happened, and there's a chapter in the book that I labeled Incredible Acts, Unbelievable Encounters. And the things that I kept a journal of as it was happening was mind-blowing, because I used to kind of poke fun and clown on, there's a stand-up comedian in me again, on people that were so into Jesus.
Hmm.
You know, and I'd be like, I don't get it. Like, okay, like my grandfather was a priest. Yeah, in my heart, I kind of believe, but like, go live your life. But I didn't understand that these people were living their life. They were living a better life than I was, and they were doing it with God.
Hmm.
And so now that I'm on the other side of it,
Yeah.
it's like I've told people I can't shut up. Once the subject opens up,
Yeah, but
like
you were able to pinpoint a perspective of what is asked of us, because Jesus was asked a lot of questions, but rarely would he give us a straight ahead answer. Heck, the Bible doesn't oftentimes give us a existential, practical, pragmatic answer to, A plus B is C. Oftentimes it's
Mhm.
parables and it's allegories. And once in a while, you get God saying, "Here's the answer. No, no mystery here. No mist. No confusion. You don't have to interpret. Hey, God, what is the greatest commandment? Love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself." And so he, if you believe Jesus is God, he literally said, "This is the greatest commandment. The commandment was made for all humanity to know how the game works, how the rules work. He's the rule maker, the game designer." And so he gave us the answer. How we go about doing that, presenting our experience and giving it to others, will be our skill set. It'll be our work. It'll be our sphere of influence. It'll be our family. It'll
Mhm.
be our wife. It's just how we engage with the culture and the community will be unique to us because we'll all have different paths, but we're all going to Oz, man. We're all going to the same place.
And the fun part is sometimes is that we'll get it wrong and we fall off the wagon, whether it's our temper or, feeling slighted or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah,
And you kind of have to go back to be like, wait a second, I've got the presence of God around me. Why
yeah,
am I trying to mess with this and figure this
yeah.
out? when God is right here waiting for me. And it's like
Yeah.
not even my job to do that. But yet I want to do that because my human side is like, but X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Well, but you know what though? Um, when you start getting where you're going. See, the reason I brought up, when Jesus said, "Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength," those are 4 different sort of categories that are specific to what we need to tap into. And I've been a Christian my whole life. I got saved when I was 9. Now I had my prodigal journeys and all this and that, but I pretty much grew up as and always believed throughout my life and went through different stages and different uh, uh, types of churches from high charismatic to very conservative, and
Mhm.
just experience all these different levels. But one thing I
You're a
learned,
lot like me. I've been church hopping too. I don't belong to a denomination. That's what I
okay,
tell people.
yeah, and it's not even denominations as much as what am I getting from this? Because there was some I learned from the
Yeah.
charismatic churches as far as being open to God moving in some mysterious, beautiful way, and just
Mhm.
accepting that. That's something to learn from that because some of these more staid high church uh, 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 aspects maybe restrict your freedom to worship God, however authentically that might mean.
Mhm.
And so, if I want to dance for God, I never have, but I've said if I did, I would think that I would hope that would be an option open to me, and that I wouldn't be looked down on by parishioners, is what I'm getting at. And they would, they would. Meanwhile, David danced in his underwear, when he was coming into, after he had victories. So God is really open to letting every flavor experience Him and deliver His message in a unique way. But I learned something. I'm just getting it really is I have always, for the most part, known Christ in my mind. I'm analytical. I'm an autodidact. That's how I've learned most of
Mhm.
everything I know. And I love philosophy and I love logic and I love reason and I love apologetics. I love sort of mind thinking and trying to sort of the apologetics of defending the faith and so forth. And that's a fun thing. And not everybody's good at that. That's loving God with your mind. And your soul, of course, is just giving yourself over to Him, and your strength is trying to live it as God would be. But you know what, dude? I wasn't, I was not connected to Him in the heart, the personal. I know this real guy, and there was a guy that just died. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. You may not. His name was Arthur Blessed, and he was an old friend. And he is a guy that was a street preacher in Sunset Boulevard back in the 60s with the hippies. And one day God told him to take the cross off of his church and
Mhm.
put it over his shoulder and walk across the country. And he did in 1969. He ended up putting a wheel on it so he could keep walking. And the man walked, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest walk in human
Oh,
history.
wow.
And he's the most amazing dude I ever met. The only guy I've ever met in my Christian walk that I felt like this is what an apostle was like. There was something about him I didn't understand. Like he knew Jesus. Like he had just hung out with him, like for real. Oh, I just was with Jesus a second ago, but yeah, I came over.
That's touching. I did that with my grandfather on
Yeah.
Palm Sunday in Beirut, Lebanon. He had a big cross and I had a smaller one, and I followed him through the streets. That's
Nice.
very touching.
Yeah, no, they're very, very, very cool. But that experience of the tactile experiencing of and replicating Christ's walk, I think God does mean that legitimately. I think he does mean that seriously. When he says you're crucified, he's serious. Now, of course, it probably will come in a spiritual crucifixion, or perhaps in an angst of a personal crisis, like you said you experienced. More than likely, we're not going to actually be crucified, but we could. We're watching our brothers
Well,
and
you know
sisters.
what happened to me the night that the encounter happened, and externally my body caught fire, and as the fire went up and surpassed my head, I did feel the sensation of passing away for just a brief moment. Like it was frightening, the experience of dying. Like it was very scary. But once it happened, I felt like I joke and I say I said it in the book too. Like I was in a state of zombie Nick. Like I felt like the living dead.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it felt amazing though. And I was just walking in pure spirit with him. And on the most part, it's been like that. Like you genuinely, there's a spiritual thing that happens with these Holy Spirit encounters where And I've spoken to other people who have experienced this, and they said, yeah, they said, you feel like you already passed away, and you're not afraid of the day that comes that you passed away because you've already experienced it. So
Ah,
that's also part of the reason why I was so compelled to write this, because it's like it's an autobiography that leads to a Holy Spirit encounter. And
yeah.
that was the whole point of it, because I don't know if people read it, I don't know what they might get from it. They might get to experience the same thing, they may not, but at least they're going to have insight into, oh, like this stuff is real. Like it happens, you know?
Yeah, well, I had one experience with a tangible touch of God. I'm not
Oh,
even,
wow.
I'm not going into it, but it only happened once in my life. But I will just summarize it because again, I'm going to piggyback off of what I heard you just say. This is very synergistic, so I'm grateful for that because I feel like what God is doing is he's kind of showing us that there are principles and formulas of how he engages us that are very similar. You talked about being in your bed saying, take my spirit because I can't take this darkness. Well, there's an old phrase for that, the dark night of the soul. Every
Mm.
single person that goes finds a deep moment where they connect to God and they realize I'm never turning back have to be purged in the dark night of the soul. It's part of the
Oh,
ceremony.
wow.
It's part of the
Just got
ceremony.
chills, bro.
Yeah, because it's a ceremony God puts us through. You are being sacrificed. You are in the Holy of Holies. He's saying, I'm going to take you to the darkest place to refine you. And you better decide, are you in or out? Because this is real. This isn't a joke. This is all in or nothing. Jesus, God said, I would rather you be hot or cold. And but because you're lukewarm, I spew you out of your mouth. Now, how hardcore is that?
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore.
Well, that God is saying, I would rather you go to hell than you be lukewarm and skate into my eternal perfection by abusing and leveraging my son's sacrifice without really honoring it. I'm getting you in by the skin of your
Mm.
teeth, but what a disgraceful way to do it. I think we as believers in America, I'm not speaking to Middle Eastern Christians. When you said you were Lebanese, I go, okay, well, this guy was either a former Muslim or he could be a Christian. But either
People
way,
assumed that. Yeah, they assumed. They were asking me, so what was it like? I'm like, my mom has always been Christian. My dad has always been. Well, my dad's the Lebanese Greek one, and my mom's Armenian. But it was a Christian household, which made this whole thing extra interesting. And I mentioned a part of it. It's in the spiritual backlash chapter where some people who were Christian got freaked out by what happened to me because of what they were used to. So
but that's
Christian
what I'm
household, but
saying.
what does that mean to be even Christian once this happens? It's like,
But
whoa, what do you mean encounter? What are you talking about?
that's what I'm getting at. And again, I'm being very sort of uh, uh, transparent in that I grew up in the church my whole life for the most part, and yet I was missing giant pieces of the puzzle. And
Mm.
the we were never called to be Christians. Okay, we were never called to be Christians. We were called to be disciples. That's a whole different thing. Christian is easy because Jesus did the work. He
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
He was the sacrifice. He died. He rose. He sanctified. He redeemed.
yeah.
I just said, I'll take it. That was easy.
But that's way easier, bro.
The disciple, right? And that's where people, but that's where people can get stuck. And Jesus said, well, wait a minute. I want you all in. I want you to count the cost. I want a disciple, a follower. And that's where we get the word discipline, where you
Oh, I
where
see. I
where
see.
you have to now do some work. You now have to be crucified. You now have to be a slave. You now have to be dead. You now have to subjugate your will for mine. You now have to hold yourself very accountable to the casual compromises of life that you've allowed yourself to indulge in. They're all off the table now. I'm asking you to be fully refined, and it hurts. It
Yes.
hurts.
Yeah.
And so when I had my little experience, the only thing I was going to say about it was I didn't expect it because I didn't see it coming. It came out of the blue, but it scared me. And that's all I wanted to get at because you said the same thing. People say, "Oh, if I could just see God," and let me tell you something. When
You would
people
die.
when an angel showed up, that people said, "Holy!" do I worship? Should I look? Should I?
It's very disarming.
You start seeing the spiritual realm
Yeah.
show up. There ain't no, well, I got a bone to pick with you. You in
No.
your face going, I am in the holy of holies. What am I doing here? I don't belong.
What happened to me, I was forced onto the ground by what I called radioactive rain, golden rain, fire rain.
Some of you
And
felt or you just sensed?
no, I saw. I
Oh,
literally, it was raining in the apartment, golden fire rain.
so
And
like
everything was
visions.
vibrating. Vision, yeah. But
Okay.
I felt it on my back and it was pushing me down. And I was forced to basically get on the floor. I put my head down on the floor and I just started crying because it felt like I was on a roller coaster drop. So there was a sensation with the visions. It was all very tangible. It was all happening.
Well, we keep
And
talking about bits and pieces. I don't mean to cut you off, but why don't we just start from the beginning? Were you by yourself? What
yes,
prompted this
um,
incredible change of your life that changed you forever? What happened?
well, this was like encounter number like 10, I think by now, but
Oh, okay.
at that point, but the initial encounter took place when the church conference was over and I had 9 people praying over me, laying their hands on. What it was, I kind of like in the book, I was talking about how I reached a point for some reason, and I still can't explain it to this day. I was just desperate to meet God. I was tired of being told to read scripture to know Him. I was tired of being on a TV show about Him. I started to sense this severe isolation. It was like, it was a point in my life, it was post lockdowns too. And the lockdowns really mentally traumatized me. They really did, as they did many people. I don't think we talk about that enough. And the repercussions and, the post lockdown apologies that are being issued. It's like, well, it's a little too late for that because you guys jacked up a lot of people's mental healths and God saw everything you guys did. So we'll leave it at that. But it was so desperate. I'm like, I can't trust anybody's word anymore. It was this desperate need to want to meet him. And I I don't know why, but in hindsight, he was removing me from everything. Like in the book, I said, I feel like I was being taken away from everyone and everything that I ever cared about. I stopped caring about acting. I stopped caring about being on the TV show. I stopped hanging out with my castmates, really. It even felt different with my family. In the hindsight, I think he was cutting the cord off of everything that I had attached myself to. And he needed me in a much darker place than even years ago when I was laying on my bed saying, hey, this breakup is hurting me. It's too much. It was so desperate. And so on the way, and I'm very transparent in the book about this. I wrote about it. I was driving to the church conference. That very same day, I don't know if you want to call it a demonic entity, a low energy entity, a gray, black, whatever. It felt like venom. And it literally latched onto my body as I was driving and started swallowing me alive.
Hmm.
And I froze and I thought, what is this? It wasn't a feeling I had. It wasn't a nervous breakdown. Those I'm pretty great at gauging because I don't have a history of drug use. I don't drink. I've never used substances unless you count Tylenol when I got a big fever or something. But it was literally a tangible entity that was swirling around my body. And I felt like I was being sucked into it and I couldn't fight it off. And that's when I screamed to God. I said, God, please, my soul is lost. And that's something that I had admitted for the first time in my life. And everything just kind of disintegrated off of me. And that was what primed me for when I showed up at the church conference for that encounter to happen. Because, dude, I was scared because I didn't know where I was to go after that church conference. Yeah, I'd fly back to California. I'd be with my family. But again, when you feel separated and isolated all of a sudden from everything, at the time you think, what does this even mean? But then when God shows up and pretty much gives you the validation of all the answers, it's like, holy moly, what's happening? And I almost ran out of the convention center as they were praying over me, but I couldn't because my feet were glued to the ground. Like not literally, but I couldn't move. So this has been too much for some people to hear, whether it's friends or family. They think you've got bonkers. I've been told I've been brainwashed. I've joined a cult. I'm not a part of any, I don't belong to a church, actually. I'm just I call myself, I'm just a rogue agent. And these experiences have been so tangible and so real that people around me now, like my mom has told me she's seen something float around in the house. And then my dad recently had a Holy Spirit encounter while my cousin was visiting from Greece, and we were finalizing the edits of the book on the big screen. He had his first Holy Spirit encounter. He left, came back in the house, and his eyes were changing from dark brown to light blue and gray. They were just turning. And my cousin saw that too, and she wanted to say something. She didn't want to say anything. It was in her place, but this is just it's been a mind trip. So, and I know some people have taken issue with me saying, "Well, I don't have faith anymore." Like I know him, but that's why I've said it, because I don't need faith to I don't need faith anymore, because the Holy Spirit encounter has brought me to the point of knowing him. Like I can sense him. I know, I can sense the persona behind it. Like I know him. And I'm not saying I'm here to show you this book and like look at, like I'm not here to say I'm perfect. In the book, I'm here to say he's perfect. And although the path he had me on was very messy at times, it was perfect in its own right. And it eventually all led to him. So in essence, it made everything else worthwhile. And so if I can have somebody, even who's a teenager in their early 20s or whatever, read the book and go along the journey of some of the pitfalls and experience it for themselves, then maybe that'll have them make a slightly different choice when they're faced with, oh, this is the part of the chapter in the book that I'm experiencing right now, being presented with. Do I want to make that same forward momentum choice, or maybe I should go this way instead? Because I know what's going to happen if I do that.
Yes. Well, so interestingly enough, you're talking about a true experience that you've had that is obviously amazing, life altering, life changing. You'll never be the same.
No.
You've sort of balanced the spiritual realm with your physical, which is who we are. We're spirit and body. And yet, meanwhile, you're playing Zebedee on The Chosen, and I venture to guess, because this is how naive evangelical Christians in America can be, is they look at faith-based films or series and assume everybody's a Christian and assume everybody's a believer, and that's part of the criteria. Are you SAG? Okay, great. Have you have any experience in drama? You have. Okay. Do you have any problem with wearing topless, but for the male only? Male only, yeah. Okay. And you're a Christian, right? You are a Christ follower. Okay. They don't do that. They just get the best grip that comes in whatever package. They get the best uh, AD. They get the best director. They get the best guy they can get to make the best product. And it's funny because most of my films I have acted in over the years have been faith-based, just because I'd rather tell those stories.
Hmm.
I like what I get to be, even though I've played a lot of heavies and the bad guy and whatever, so I still get to have fun. But the problem has always been in the art, in the performance arts, especially in the filmmaking community, for Christians, is we've created sort of a artificial boundary as to what is appropriately Christian film. What are you allowed to say? What are you not allowed to say? What items can be obscene? Can we have a gun? Can we not? Can the guy be drinking? Can he not be drinking? Can he be doing drugs? Can he not be doing? Can they use a curse word? Can he not? They have some very specific expectations to call it a faith film.
Hmm.
And you can't write a story like that. You can't write a story with barriers. Now, I'm not saying there's no expectations of decorum and righteousness as a Christian filmmaker, or that we're going to do porn or something. There's certainly things that are clearly off brand. But my point is that for example, I remember when The Blind Side came out, and it was in Lifeway bookstores when they still existed. And some pastor had complained because the DVDs were in there, and I think a guy either had a gun or he said a curse word or he drank a beer, something like that. And so they kind of pulled it because he was getting complaints. And it's like, but he was a gang member. That's kind of what they. So I don't understand this artificial constraint that the buying public, the buying Christian public, will put upon a faith-based drama or film, as though they are the arbiters of what is morally acceptable. Meanwhile, God Almighty has a book, and he told some stories too.
He did.
And if I was to say, did I tell you I got a great faith-based film? Yeah, it's a dad and a couple of his daughters, and they have sex, but it's a faith-based film, and there is a murder of a husband because a guy's he's a voyeur and he watches women bathe, and then he has sex with them, but he kills the husband. It's great, it's drama, it's exciting, but it's faith-based. And of course they're going to go, that's crazy, we can't do that. And of course you say, so you're right. The story of David cannot be told. We can't tell the story.
That's so true.
And so
That's
it's
so
like,
true.
and we're talking about when you're talking about incest, when you're talking about
Yeah.
homosexual rape, and things along that nature, that's about as graphic as it gets. And what I'm getting at is,
Mhm.
God said, I want this story told. And it's gonna be written down, and it's gonna be here forever. So I'm wondering to you, this is like a way convoluted backstory out of my frustration with some of the faith-based.
It's okay. I'm hearing you out. It's
Yeah.
okay.
But I know Dallas a bit, and I know his desire to make, authentic type films. So do you feel like there has been any perimeters, fence posts placed up around The Chosen, as far as maybe things you guys have wanted to do, and you feel like, we got to nix that because somebody's going to complain? Or have you felt like you were pretty free, because you do take liberties? You'd use Bible stories, but then you create a narrative around it, because we don't know what was told by the woman at the well, by the people that came and found her. We don't know.
Yeah, that's how they do it. Yeah. Yeah. But
So,
going back to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'll just leave it there.
No, because you touched on an important subject, going back to what you're saying about, what's considered faith-based, what's not. And so this is a discussion that I'm constantly having with some very close friends of mine, as far as, I think, going back to what you were pointing out with my roots in the Middle East, that I'm basically cousins, with Jesus and the Israelis and the Jews. And so in the Middle East, it's very passionate, right? Like loving, passionate, temper, passionate. Everything is with such passion. And I don't believe Jesus was excluded from any of that stuff in his human form. Of course, he was perfect. He was God. But what I'm starting to come to know is, well, why would God want to be human? Well, to redeem us, but also I genuinely feel in my heart, God wanted to know what it was actually like to be human. Like, why are these people getting it so wrong? Like, what's so hard?
Yeah.
So of course God had to be human to go through what we went through, to understand us, and then eventually say, you know what, I forgive you. Like,
Yeah.
it is hard to be you guys. You guys just mess up left and right. You can't help yourselves.
Yeah.
And so when I have these conversations with my friends, and I alluded to it a little bit in the later chapter in the book, how I talk about I had to get away and walk away from some people that I was walking with within the faith-based community, because it was almost like they were trying to place me in a cage, of this is how your behavior should be, this is how your demeanor should be in life, almost like trying to make me a cookie cutter of them. But the irony in it is that, guys, I think we're forgetting that Jesus, I mean, he's probably mixed ethnicity, probably, but he was Jewish, Israeli. He's from the Middle East, where I'm from. And then I started to realize that. I'm like, oh, wait a second. So I think something that's that's maybe a little bit of a miss within the Western culture when it comes to taking Jesus and following him, although when well intentioned and people wanting to pray for me, like, bro, I'm forever grateful for all of it. But what I'm saying is, it's like, oh, but it doesn't make sense to act and behave this way because wait a second, like, because then I started reading the Bible and I started seeing all the inappropriate language that was written in there. And I thought, whoa, this is crazy. And then I started having conversations with other believer friends who were pretty much on the same boat as far as you're right. Like, you should be passionate about life. And your righteous anger is not a bad thing. And just because you encountered the Holy Spirit, and I even jokingly said to some of my friends, I said, I feel like the Western world is confusing Jesus with Buddha. And they're taken aback by someone's forthcomingness and their righteous anger and their, you know, their desire to kind of stand up for what's right and say what's right. And it's kind of funny because it's like some of my well-meaning, lovable, you know, American friends were trying to like enforce on me how to be more like Jesus when Jesus was this Middle Eastern Jew that had righteous anger.
Yeah.
Dude,
No,
you
but
can
no, but
use that in
that
your stand-up comedy. That it's funny, man. Like it's
well,
funny.
but it is important because the truth
Yeah.
of the matter is, I think so much of conflict and aggression and abrasiveness that has happened interdenominationally or amongst
Yeah.
Christians and whatnot comes from the lack of understanding of the times that this was written. Because if you don't understand
Imagine being a
2000,
Middle Eastern man
yeah,
2,000 years
yeah,
ago.
it's a whole different.
Imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the
I
thing:
mean,
you have an advantage, and you're no more privy to 2,000 years ago than I am. You're a
yeah,
modern Western man for all intents and purposes,
yeah.
but you are Middle Eastern, legit. You have Middle Eastern blood. You're from the Holy Lands, and so in some respects, you do have an advantage because you have a little bit more instinct as to what it feels like to be of this region. And
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
is different the way you eat together, even though I'm sure it's not quite as ceremonial as perhaps it would have been hundreds of years ago.
No, no, yeah. It's
Yeah, but my
but
point is,
eating together is important. It's very important.
yeah, but you know,
Friendship is very
you're
important.
not necessarily laying on the floor, picking stuff out of a community bowl. You might be, they do that in India. But my point is that man, be grateful that you might have a little bit more of a insight because what we're Christian and I'm German, so there you go, and I'm an American, so I only have an American. I always preface American Christian over Christian in general because we've had it so easy in the United States, and there was never anything at stake that our Christianity has got to be the most superficial of all
Hmm.
Christianity worldwide. It has to be because
Why do you think that?
it
Just
never cost us anything. It never cost
oh,
us anything. If I was in the Congo on February 14th, a couple months ago or weeks ago, I would have been rounded up with 70 other guys and had my head split open by Muslim extremism
mm,
and killed while my wife was raped and taken and my children were sold into Muslim. This is happening right now
wow.
to my people in the Congo, in Syria, where they were murdered.
I heard that's going on and it's
Yeah.
starting to happen in Syria right now. I'm
Yes.
hearing that.
So my point is this: um, Christians in America, and that's my expertise, we're taught to judge content instead of context. And without context, you don't really know
Hmm.
you don't know what you're talking about. So if I'm talking about a Jewish man saying A, B, and C, I go in English. because I'm reading my little King James. It's like, well, first off, let's get the Hebrew so we really understand what this is saying. Let's really talk about the Aramaic. We also need to go back 2,000 years because to them, a woman was put in this position instead of that, and this man was never allowed. And suddenly everything, they'd never heard of telescopes. Who knows what was happening that would have them completely see this term or this phrase or this insight that Christ was giving them or apostle was giving them means completely something that we couldn't even begin to imagine because we're putting it through 2025 eyes as though it should match.
And in the Middle Eastern culture, there's a lot of things that are spoken in poetic metaphors is what I call them. So one really mean one it's not funny, but it is. A relative of mine, I've heard them say before to someone that they've been angry with and in conflict with, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to hang you from a tree. I'm going to hang you from a tree. Is he going to do that? No, he's not going to hang him from a tree. But imagine if that was written down and then passed down as part of whatever.
Right.
And someone was told to follow that kind of example.
Oh, exactly.
You shouldn't go hanging anybody from a tree, but it's like, again, this Middle Eastern metaphorical way of speaking.
And it seems to be dramatic, and it seems to really try to make a point when Jesus said, if your eye offends you, pluck it out. If your hand offends you, cut it off.
I could totally see a Middle Eastern person saying that.
Yeah, because
they don't mean for you to do that, but he's using it as an example, like that's how bad it is. Like it's worth it to get into the kingdom of heaven. If that's what it took, you got to do that. He's not telling people to actually go do that.
Right. I want you to know how serious I am. But see, that's the beauty of language. And that's why I don't want language to be censored if it's trying to make a point, because it's a communication device. It's kind of like when David talked about the type of people he needed to help him in battle. And he said, he who pisseth upon a wall. Basically saying only men can do that, so I need men. But that's how he described it, as a guy that can stand up and pee on a wall. That's what I'm looking for. Well, that's crude maybe or graphic, but so what? I get it. I get the depth of it. It's wonderful dialogue. It has grit. It has something that I can sink my teeth into. You don't have to elaborate. So you're on The Chosen. You're on this. It's very successful. I'm guessing that you told me earlier before we went on, began the initial interview, that you even had some folks stalking you a little bit and trying to send you tracks or whatever. But here's the point. There must be something odd and unique about playing a character that is part of a biblical narrative. Because it's so sacred to people. It's their religion. It is so holy. It is so sacrosanct. Mm-hmm. This isn't Shakespeare, and God bless Shakespeare. But this is beyond that.
Yeah.
This is as deep, as foundational, as a definition of who I am, as anything I have. And you are suddenly, and I've read of Zebedee, and suddenly, guess what? That's you. And you're like, I'm playing but you can't, if you did it right, you can't separate the power of this story with the actor. And of course you're going, I kind of didn't sign up. Can I kind of say I clocked out now? So tell me about that.
Yeah,
Is there extra pressure?
No, to be honest, I don't feel any pressure, and I never have since day one. I actually there's a chapter in the book called "It's Just Zebedee, Honey," and I quoted my talent manager at the time because she mispronounced the name when she read me the breakdown.
Yeah, right.
Said, I have an audition for you, honey. I said, they want you to come back. They want you to read for Dallas in person. And I said, what's the new character? And she couldn't pronounce it over the phone. She just kept going, it's just Zebedee, honey. She gave up. It's just Zebedee. Click. Yeah. She sent me the audition script. And I said no to the project about 3 times when they booked me for it, because when I heard that I was booked for play a guy in his, a fisherman in his mid-50s, and I was, 37 at the time when I got the audition, I blew a gasket because it had been 9 months of a dry spell for the on-camera acting world. However, I was working on Care Bears. So I was Grumpy and Tenderheart for Care Bears. And that was my dream, actually. That was the pinnacle of the acting dream for me, to voice an animated series that was reminiscent of those 80s, 90s cartoons. Like, that's what I grew up on. And I didn't want to ruin that. And I didn't want to ruin what I had going with the Apple store, because I kept my job there. Although my manager kept telling me to just quit. He's like, you made it. You could just quit. Why are you still here? I was like, because the Care Bear money goes into my savings, and then Apple money goes to my food and my rent. That's why.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, whatever, man. But I turned it down because, in the book I mentioned how it was like this chatter broke out around my head. It was like orbiting my mind, multiple, there'd be lines of scripts. And the way I've actually formatted them in the book isn't written like a typical autobiography format. There are your typical paragraphs, but then they break. And then there's all these big, bold writings that represent the time of how I felt or what was coming at me. So there was all these things telling me, don't do it. This is a stupid project. It's a waste of time. You're going to get fired from both your gigs. Don't do it. Don't take it. So I back and forth with my talent manager at the time. No, I don't want to do it. No. And then finally a compromise was reached. If Care Bears would let me off and Apple Store would let me off, I would go end of November to early December to shoot the first season of The Chosen, episode 4. And Zebedee was only in it for one episode, by the way. They only wrote him in for episode 4. And I was going to be gone. And there's something else too, which I won't get into because it's a lot of details, but it's in the chapter called Stay. And it pertains to my dad having a heart attack the night before we were going to shoot the rest of the miraculous catch of the fish scene. And the choice I was left with, whether to leave the show or stay and risk never seeing my dad basically ever again. But Zebedee, I will say, when I read the script, I read it. It was well written, of course. It was all vivid. The setting was vivid. The characters was vivid. And I sat back and it was like God downloaded him onto me, like zoom. His rough persona, sort of like my dad. His very, very gentle and caring heart, like my mother. And then this kind of hybrid formed, and this kind of new character was formed out of that. And so, what happened after that was I said, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Eventually, things worked out. I ended up doing it. But to answer your question about the pressure, to be honest, I was so over the on-camera acting world that when I showed up to set to film episode 4, I was purposely trying to get fired by doing voices and jokes in between takes and trying to purposely disregard Dallas's directions. And I started to think, gosh, no matter what, they're not firing me. Why are they not firing me? I was like you, I was being a stand-up comic on set, and I couldn't care less about the repercussions because I'd already kind of said goodbye to the on-camera acting world.
But
In my
I
mind.
guess what I'm, and I think you understood when I said, did you feel pressure? I don't mean like pressure to pull it off or do it well, but
The context of what
is
it
there a
is.
different, is there a different,
You know why I don't feel
is there a
pressure?
different
I know what you mean.
responsibility? Is there
Yeah.
a different responsibility to
Um,
pray
it's
God's word that has changed lives for thousands of years? Meanwhile, this many years later, you've become a full-blown on fire. I'm one of them. I get it now even deeper. Do you feel it wouldn't be fair? I'm just saying though that do people seem to respond differently? Do they act like they're not just looking at an actor? They're like, oh, you're this holy guy or something. Is there some
it,
odd extra thing about it that you feel is uncomfortable?
no, actually, to be honest, because people do come up. Like I was stopped at Sprouts a few months ago by a husband. He said, "Hey, are you Zebedee?" And I said, "No, but I play him." And he
Yeah.
called out to his wife in the middle of Sprouts in the produce section, "Honey, it is him." He said, "I told you it's him," and they couldn't recognize me because of the aging and all that stuff that we do on the show. But they come at me with this sincerity and they're thankful. Usually they get very emotional. And I keep hearing the same thing, like, you represent the heart of the Father. You represent the heart of the Father. So during the run of it, I felt like I kind of slid right into place with this character, even though I didn't want to play him. But again, going back to what God destines you to do, I slid right into the role. It was not, I was like, this fits just right. Even though I don't want to do it, I feel it, I know it, it fits right. And in turn, it showed me what it was like to be a father, because I'm not a father in real life. But again, God using the show as a conduit to get me to play the role, to get me to Texas, to give me a taste of what it was like to be around him. And eventually in real life, while the castmates are doing scenes, here I am, it's actually happening, an encounter, and all these different things are going on. It's just, it's mind-blowing. But people don't have an expectation of me being holy, or, and I know people could say the Bible calls us to be holy, and I get it, but like, in my view, I've never met anybody that's holy in my
Yeah,
entire
no, I just
even
didn't.
within the, like, if somebody says they're holy, for me, I run the other way. That scares me, because I believe Jesus is the only human form that we ever saw on planet Earth. But we're all fallible. We're all, you know, if I think of something that's off kilter, I've already sinned. You know,
Right. I just wondered though, I guess, and you answered it, was it if it was a different kind of, because here's the truth. If you nail a character, if it becomes iconic,
Mhm.
you kind of can't escape it. And it can be a detriment, you become typecast. Oh, I can never not see you as whatever, the girl that was on Gilligan's Island, she could never kind of work ever again. The
Oh,
because and she had been an actress prior to that on Broadway and had done well. Suddenly she's a sitcom-y cartoon character, and she feels it ruined her career. But
mm,
if you look at Anthony Hopkins, this brilliant actor, and did this incredible thing with Hannibal Lecter, I don't think anybody went up to him and said, I love your acting. By the way, do you still eat people? Or I don't think anybody's really doing that, because we are able to separate. But boy,
yeah.
certain roles, I do think just your face is attached to that, whether you like it or not, forever. I mean, I can't imagine playing Christ. Like Jim Caviezel, I met once, and of course, he did it in The Passion of the Christ. But
Mm,
boy, you want to talk about a role that kind of changes you forever. You're playing the
yeah.
most famous man in human history,
Well,
and maybe the most controversial.
you know what's interesting with Zebedee? I feel like it's different, because from day one, I went to the makeup team and I basically told them to age me. They didn't have plans on aging me. And I thought, what? I don't look old enough to be these guys' dad. Maybe their older brother. So they age me. So in public, it's like the confused look. And then people have to double check and ask, like, are you?
Yeah,
Because you don't look like that. So, so in a way, I feel like God worked it out to where
yeah.
my face, my persona as the character on The Chosen, it's so aged, it's so mature, an older man, and Zebedee is, it's his own character. So when people meet me in person, or if I'm sending off self tapes, like, I'm this, I'm not that. So there's, even in that, God is kind of, I feel like, almost preserved and protected me. And to be honest, in my mind, I used to think of it as an acting career. But even recently, after talking with a good friend of mine, her name is Antonia, and she's in the book too. She's a seer. She said, you know what, Nick? She said something to me that changed me forever a week ago, even more so. She said, none of us really know what we want in life. And the minute she said that, I accepted it into my heart, and I had a communicative talk with God within a split second. And I said, you know what? I love the way that makes me feel. I don't know. And I said, God, I want you. I want to want what you want for me in life. And I was just relieved. And I mean, that's how I was when I was in college. I really didn't, like, I knew I wanted to work in film or whatever, or VO, but there's something exciting about kind of admitting to yourself, none of us really, really know what we want in life, because it's like every time we get it, guess what? Surprise, surprise, it's not enough.
Yeah.
And then we go on to the next thing. Surprise, surprise, that's not enough. The 10 mansions aren't enough. Why am I still depressed? I have 10 speedboats on the dock parked next to each other. So it's all about really giving that up. And it's hard to do that. I get it. But like, making peace with not really knowing what you want in life and letting him into your life is the best way to go about it, because it was not a career goal for me to, like, oh, I'm going to write a book because I'm going to have an encounter with the Holy Spirit and it's going to be this book. Like, nah, man. Like, that wasn't part of my plan.
What do you think The Chosen has given culture? How, I mean, it might be a little challenging for you since you're kind of involved in it, but it's made a lot of noise. It seemed to have been very helpful to folks in the spiritual realm to find Christ. Certainly to see Christianity in a different light. I hope in a more sympathetic light and a beautiful light. I got to say, I loved the first thing I ever saw. I've never. I don't know if I should say never seen them. I've never watched the show. Not that I'm against it. I just have never seen it. And but I did see the trailer, the first trailer I saw, where the woman at the well, and he talks about, "Hey, go get your husband," and she's like,
Mhm.
"I'm sure these are all buddies of yours," and she goes, "No, I'm not married." He goes, "Yeah, you've had five," and so we've all heard that, and then suddenly she's kind of like disheveled a bit, and he goes, "Yes, your first husband was, Johan, and." He smelled as orange rinds and in the summer, and you remember, and he started sort of poetically describing her intimate history.
Yeah.
And and she did a wonderful job. She really broke her down, and she said, "Oh my God, I've met the Messiah." But my point was, yeah, it's dramatization because we don't know what really went on. But I got to tell you, I was like, this is cool. That's beautiful. They gave this story life and details and moments that make it feel more vibrant. And I said, if that's what they're doing, because some people are complaining, it's not biblically accurate, or they're going a bit off, or they're being a little bit heretical. I haven't seen enough to even comment. But if that's kind of the problem, was that they're taking license, I got to be honest, I liked it. I thought it was beautiful. So maybe I'm answering my own question without really having the authority to do that. But what is the Chosen brought to the table, perhaps, that other faith-based series haven't?
Something touching that's happened to me with people over and over again, and it's shocking. And this is direct feedback that I've gotten from people. One girl came up to me and she hugged me and she just started crying. She said, my father passed away, and the way you came up and hugged your sons and kissed them in the show, it just reminded me of how my dad was, and just getting thanked for that. And it's like the same feedback over and over again, like I wish you were my dad, or I wish, Zebedee was my uncle. And so, whatever contribution that through inspiration I made to the show to affect people in that way is just mind blowing, because I'm just showing up and having fun. Like, I don't, there is, of course, I sense kind of a sacredness in playing the character. Like, that does overtake me personally. And that's just speaking for myself. And it has since day one. And maybe that was part of God's individual sign to me, how he's been pursuing me for years and years and years. And he's like, oh, finally, he's close enough for me to get him. Um, but it's just things like that. It's just things like
Well,
people.
I think it's very awe-inspiring and humbling when God chooses us. When he says, "You're going to be one of mine," and we don't know why, we don't know how it
Yeah.
comes. You got him after you had been part of something that people probably would have assumed you already were pretty deep with Christ, because holy smoke, you're in this amazing Christian series, so you probably already have a decent relationship, and yet to you it was a gig, and the next thing you know, I'm not saying it was a direct result of your encounter, but I don't know how you couldn't be around believers and around these stories and not have the word not return void, as it says, that it was
Well,
stirring up
you know what's insane. One of the construction leads, John Hart, he's with Hart. He owns Hart Construction. He built that, and his company built that entire thing with his men. And one of his men had dinner chat with me after my encounter. And he just started crying, and he said, Did you hear how we wrote scriptures in the walls of the sets?" And I said, "Yeah, I've heard that." He said, "Do you know where it started?" And I said, "Where?" He said, my workstation was based in Zebedee's house, your house. He said, I'm the one who heard from God, start doing that. That's when the rest of the men started writing scripture in their homes. But he said it was all pinpointing to you. He said, it's no accident that I'm sitting here across the table to tell you all this. I wrote it in the chapter called Hungry, because something also happened because of the Holy Spirit encounter with my hunger and thirst. And that changed me on a biological level, which is insane. But of course, booking the show was, like I said earlier, the cheesy title, Breadcrumbs of Life. That was another thing that was another peg. And then it just was interesting to me that it amalgamated to where I'm at a church conference, which, by the way, it was over. It wasn't even going on when this whole took place. And security was ushering everybody out, asking them kindly to leave. But they left me and the 9 people alone. They just kind of left us alone. They ignored us. And when the church conference was over, this salt of the earth people, two of which were, some of the construction guys from the set. It was them and their families, their mom, dad, wives, and kids. And what I love about this when I talk about this encounter, I love that it didn't happen on a set, meaning being a part of the show was, I say, duh, of course, part of that journey, like 100%. And so it's like, how can you not mention that? But the fact that I was still struggling, even though I was on the show, and that dark being takeover started to happen on my way to the conference, spoke volumes, meaning that I've said the show's a conduit to get me to Texas, but the conference is over, and I'm just in the midst of these salt of the earth people that are just spirit-filled and broken themselves in the most beautiful way. And just, it was intimate, man. There was nobody left in the whole conference center. It was just us. And the fact that it happened there in sort of like my lowest of lows, and God came where all the lowest were. Like, not that there were low people, but I mean, they were just humble. They were just so humble. And that's when the biggest explosion happened. I'm forever grateful to those people. And I still keep in touch with my buddy Seth, who invited me initially. And me and him have this kind of brotherly kind of connection. And it's been cool, man. And this experience has opened the door to where now I have so many different kinds of believer friends that have their own relationship with the Holy Spirit. And I feed off them and they feed off me, and we share, oh, this is what's happened to me. Oh, this is what's happened to me. Oh, that's cool. That doesn't happen to me. Or that's cool. That hasn't happened to me, but that's cool. So it's opened up these doors that I never thought, I was open to in the first place. But it's been really cool. And that's what's compelled me to sit down, write the book, and pretty much kindly say, I got to go at this alone with God to 4 publishers, because I needed everything in the book to be me, and most importantly, be of Him the way He encountered me, to stay 100% pure. And I didn't want a single word or a single sentence to go to waste as far as capturing the audience's attention in the way that I would just speak to them if we were interviewing like this.
Right. Well, that's amazing. Do you have the book with you by any chance?
Yeah, it's
Hold it up.
happens to be here.
Oh, I couldn't tell. I can't see it from where I'm. My
It's
vantage point. So
it's called Transformer: Awakening from a Spiritual Coma.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't read it from way back there. So, but where can people buy your book? Is it on Amazon or?
So yeah, this guy is going to be available on Amazon everywhere April 11th. So
Nice.
Amazon, yeah, it'll be Amazon ebook, paperback, hardback, and then you can order it through any bookstore worldwide in either hardback or paperback. God willing, it'll also be released by April 11th on Apple Books, Google Books, Kobo for international ebook downloads. So whatever your flavor is, download it, have a blast with it. It's funny, it's adventurous, but it also
people
has,
finish reading it. When people finish reading it, what do you want them to have walked away with?
it's interesting. I've been asked that before, but I didn't write it with necessarily a specific goal in mind, but one thing I did write it in mind with was people have to live what I've lived and people have to experience what I experienced at the Holy Spirit encounter. Oh my gosh, that means I got to write an autobiography. So I can't just go around talking about all the details. That would take hours. So that's what motivated me to do it. And whatever they get out of it, that's kind of between them, inspiration, God, whatever the book does to feed them. But I can assure them one thing, they're gonna be in for like a crazy, fun, humorous, wild ride reading the book. Because at times it does get a little fun, pokes fun at certain things. And, you know, I let my persona and my humor come through in the book because, like I said, it started off lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
So boring. It was so boring, man.
Right.
Because I was in the midst of all these encounters and I was just, this is wonderful. Everything's just. But then when the superhero concept came, it was like, oh my gosh. I gutted the entire book 2.5 weeks before my cousin flew here from Greece to finalize the edits. And I told her, I got to read. She said, the whole thing? I said, the whole thing. It's got to be gutted. I'm taking a pulverizer to it. And it's about superheroes. I got to make it punchy, quick and fun and emotional and just real and raw and not water down anything.
Wow. Okay. Well, listen,
Yeah.
I'm going to have you do one more question. This is for my subscribers that get to watch a little bonus question just for you. So, The Chosen is very, as I said, popular and deservedly so. Well done. And God bless Dallas for putting those pieces together. He's been working at it a long time trying to have a series that he could uh, keep going, and it finally hit from. So I'm grateful for him being able to do that. But tell us something, maybe about the Jonathan, the Jesus character. He's probably the one that everybody obviously is most focused on. I met him in Dallas once, also at a Huckabee taping when I was performing, but didn't get a chance to talk to him much. Any fun story or something nobody would have suspected or thought about him? And if not, just a situation that happened on the set of The Chosen that nobody would know about, that would have been some of you all experience that maybe was really funny or fun or unique or poignant, but it would be something that only you all would know. Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstein.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the militia of the mind, it is the warrior level, or it is the special forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the Mighty 10,000. Well,
Yeah.
folks, this is Nick Shakoour. If you watch The Chosen, you know him as Zebedee. But you probably, maybe if you have grandkids or kids and you listen to Care Bears, apparently he's, who are the voices again?
I do the voice of a grumpy bear.
And I
Okay.
do the voice of Tenderheart Bear.
Nice. So there you have it. Now you get to see what he actually looks like. But more equally important than his skill that he has left us with to be moved and inspired by Zebedee and The Chosen, and for your kids to enjoy those experiences. But he's a believer. He's a Christ follower. He gave his life to the living God. And he now, when you watch him, it comes with much more substance, much more depth, because it's coming from the actual moment that his life was changed. And now he's representing that in the stories that have changed all of our lives for 2,000 years. From the Bible, folks, what does it mean to be a believer? It means giving up the rest of your life. It's hard. If it's easy, it's probably not Christian. You might want to reconsider if you're even one of us. It's a hard thing. You got to be a disciple, and that's what he asks you to do. But it also will change your life forever, and it will give you something you can't get any other way. And you got to take that leap. You got to take that jump until maybe you'll end up like Nick, where your faith becomes so tangible it doesn't even feel faith anymore. It just is. And I'd love to have a piece of that action. Haven't got there yet, but who knows? But folks, remember, if they ever say you're politically incorrect, always say thank you for the compliment. You never ever want to lie. You are a Christian. You are the last truth tellers on earth. And remember, I'm just a comic, but I bring on people that I hope inspire you, change you, move you, and cause you to think and respond, and hopefully to come to Christ. But I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, which is what? Putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.